Hello and welcome to Provoking Tech. I'm Zach, and in today's video, I'm going to be launching a brand new series that I'm calling Sci-Fi or Fact. In Sci-Fi or Fact, I want to look at different forms of entertainment, ranging from TVs and movies to video games, and possibly even some books in the future, and kind of looking at the technology and science portrayed in those forms of entertainment to what is actually achievable today and what we have strong theories for in today's world that might be achievable in the very near future, and really looking at these pieces of entertainment and kind of gauging how far they actually are in the realm of science fiction versus what is actually possible and is actually science fact. So it should be a pretty cool series. I have lots of ideas for it. And the very first one, I'm going to be tackling Black Mirror and the first season of episode 3 titled Nosedive. So without further delay, let's go ahead and jump right to it. So to kick off the first episode of Sci-Fi or Fact, I'm going to be talking about Nosedive, which is the first episode of the third season of Black Mirror. This episode is well over a year old at this point in time, so I should be fairly safe talking about it, but just be warned, if you haven't seen it, there is going to be lots of spoilers in this discussion. I'm going to be starting this video by talking about the storyline in general and giving a brief synopsis of this episode kind of from my point of view. So to get started, we follow Lacey, who is played by Bryce Dallas Howard, as she takes the center stage for this episode of Black Mirror. Essentially, this episode takes us to a setting where everybody wears what amounts to augmented reality devices, AR, in their eyes through the form of what appears to be contact lenses. These are seemingly used primarily just to connect to a connected social media platform where everybody is giving a rating. Your everyday interactions with people and all your actions that you do throughout the day, and even the images you share, are rated by your connections. And to make things a little bit more complicated, seemingly people with a higher rating have more of an influence on your rating than people of a lower rating. So early in the episode, we see Lacey taking a bite of her cookie and posing it next to her coffee, and this probably seems quite familiar to what we see on social media today. She doesn't even eat the cookie, and in fact spits it out after taking a bite, but labels her post as heaven. And to make the photo even more ironic is the fact that she doesn't even seem to like the coffee after taking a sip following posting the image on her social media profile. But there is a silver lining for her, because this does give her several high-rated reactions to the photo that she ends up sharing. The episode enters into chilling territory when we start to see the effect that this rating has beyond just the social platform. The lease on the apartment that Lacey and her brother currently share is up, and she needs to find a new home. The neighborhood that she ultimately finds and ends up falling in love with is quite costly, but features a discount for people with a rating of 4.5 or above. Lacey, of course, is currently at 4.2, and this outside motivation to reach 4.5 is really propels the rest of the episode forward. We watch as Lacey goes the extra mile in her daily life to try to improve her rating, including agreeing to be the maid of honor for her childhood best friend, who we learn from her brother really wasn't that great of a friend. The kicker here, though, is that her childhood's best friend's guest list is filled with highly rated individuals, and a killer speech would guarantee Lacey a big social bump, because of the aforementioned fact that people that are rated higher than you seem to have a bigger impact on your rating. So because of her kind of change of attitude and change of personality, an argument with her brother kind of spirals out of control, and this is the beginning of Lacey's social nosedive. The argument with her brother causes her to be late for a pickup, which is just the start of her social drop. Arriving at the airport, she finds out that her flight has been canceled, and she can't book any of the open slots because her rating has just fallen below the 4.2 mark required. This results in a breakdown of her previously super polite and charming attitude, culminating in security being called, who then dock a full point for a 24-hour period. In addition, any negative ratings during this period will do double the effect that they normally would have done because of a status called double damage. At this point in time, Lacey begins to grow quite desperate to make it to the wedding, and ends up renting a budget car, the only tier which she now qualifies for, and she begins trying to pull a late night road trip to get to the wedding. To make a long story short, her so-called friend sees her new rating and tells her not to come to the wedding. Determined to get to the wedding and deliver her awesome speech and get the big boost she's been chasing all along, Lacey continues her journey despite what her friend says and shows up to the wedding dirty and begins delivering her speech. Delivering her speech, she essentially has an emotional breakdown which continues her nosedive to near zero. This results in her being hauled off by security and being sent to the jail. At the jail, they remove her AR contact and she is thrown in a cell, where she meets another prisoner also stripped of his link to the social platform. The episode ends with the two discovering the feeling of freedom from the social platform, where they're always being rated for every action and interaction with every other person that they do on a daily basis. So I've covered a brief synopsis of the episode, but really, how close is Nosedive to fact? I'm going to go ahead and take the low-hanging fruit and go back to the beginning of the episode and go to the cookie and coffee scene. So this is definitely something really relatable to our daily lives we already see now, as we see people do similar things and post photos of their food and so on and so forth on Instagram and other platforms. But what if the likes they got had more of an impact on their daily life through a rating system like we see in the video? Well, we're starting to see rating systems become a larger part of our life. This isn't as apparent in the US, where this is mainly restricted to certain services such as the driver rating in Uber. That's not to say that that rating in Uber is meaningless though, because if you do fall below a certain threshold, you will be removed from Uber as a driver. However, in China specifically, we see what feels like an eerie possible future becoming a reality. There are similarities to how China is using tech compared to Nosedive, where Chinese cities are starting to shame jaywalkers using video feeds with facial recognition. If a person jaywalks, a 15-second clip of them jaywalking along with their personal information, such as their ID number and home address, are displayed on a screen near the crosswalk. If that wasn't crazy enough for you, let's look at how a rating system like the one portrayed in Nosedive could really impact your life. In 2020, China will roll out a social credit system. For those unaware of this, essentially this is a sort of blend between our credit score we have in the US combined with a social score based upon your habits and behaviors. There's an excellent Wired article that covers this system and this topic very well, but I'm just going to focus on a small part of that article by focusing on Sesame Credit. Sesame Credit is one of 8 companies given a license to develop social credit scores in China and is being developed by the Ant Financial Services Group, an affiliate of the Chinese Alibaba Group. Sesame has partnered with numerous services such as the Chinese equivalent to Uber, as well as China's largest matchmaking service. Sesame gives users a score between 350 and 950 based upon 5 points. The first 3 aren't too different from what our credit system does in the US and are mainly based upon financial backing. But the last 2 points are where we start to see parts of Nosedive coming to life. The 4th point is your behavior, which includes things such as what you do and what you purchase. An example given in the article is that if you game a lot, well, you could be considered an idle person. But if you buy diapers, then you're assumed to be more responsible. The 5th point, and which is where it gets really crazy, is your friends. And this is what Sesame labels as your interpersonal relationships. So the Chinese government could possibly use some or all the techniques to being developed by Sesame and of course the other licensees, which we haven't even dug deep into what they're doing. Seeing as the algorithms used by Sesame and of course the other companies are all private, it's hard to say to what degree your behaviors, purchases, and friends will affect your social credit score, but the possibilities are quite chilling. We could see people start to fall in score simply for loving to game and disagreeing with the government on the Chinese social platforms. Getting a loan, getting job offers, access to fast internet, and even finding a match in online dating could become an ever-increasing challenge, and your friends could even grow distant in the fear of their own scores. I don't know about you, but that's not the future I dream of. Alright, so now that we've talked about the effects that a social rating system could have and how that could impact our daily lives, and how that we actually might see a similar system being implemented in our world in the very near future, let's talk about something a little more lighthearted. We're going to talk about the AR contacts that we saw portrayed in Nosedive, and Augmented reality contacts are still something that's more in the realm of science fiction at this point in time. Smart contacts are a completely different matter, and there's a lot of work being done on smart contacts now, as well as a lot of patents being issued for smart contacts. Smart contacts could do a lot of very cool things, such as the ability to monitor your blood glucose level through a contact lens. However, full-blown augmented reality inside of a contact is something that's still definitely in the realm of science fiction. However, for augmented reality, we do have a couple very strong contenders I definitely foresee becoming very big in the next couple years, and that is both phone-based AR as well as smart glasses-based AR through a service or through a device such as the Microsoft HoloLens. I definitely see phone-based AR being something that could definitely have a system more akin to what we saw in Black Mirror, simply because so many people use smartphones primarily for social media right now anyways, and one of the social media platforms developing an AR app isn't a huge stretch of the imagination, especially once AR has become more adopted by the widestream market. And we already know that, platforms such as Facebook have very, very, very strong facial recognition. And the only thing that might limit the ability to do that in real time would be the computational power of the local devices or the internet bandwidth to be able to stream that data that they're capturing over the internet and have, a server farm crunch that and beam that back to you. And with the advent of 5G in the next couple of years, that might be something that's very possible for us to see. And I know there is apps that do this for more famous people, but extending that to pretty much everybody isn't too big of a stretch of the imagination at all. Hopefully, though, it comes without what we saw with a rating attached to the person's name. Now, moving on from there, what I'm personally really interested in is what we could definitely see being done with the smart glasses. And Microsoft HoloLens has shown some very cool videos on what could be done, and especially for people in like design and engineering fields and like architecture, being able to visualize what you work on your screen in your real world as you work on it is something that's going to be a huge impact, and definitely is a better use of AR than what is portrayed in Black Mirror. But I definitely don't think that the AR really portrayed in Black Mirror is something that's too far-fetched, and I definitely could see a similar system popping up in the very near future. So as we discussed the technology that was portrayed in Nosedive, we definitely saw that it fell quite heavily on the science fact of things versus science fiction, with the social credit system being developed in China having implications that could be quite similar to what we saw in Nosedive, and augmented reality becoming something that could be very huge in the very near future. Hopefully just not in the exact same way we saw inside of Nosedive. So on that note, that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big like. I greatly appreciate that. Also, if you're not already an existing subscriber, smash that subscribe button to stay tuned for more great videos from Provoking Tech. Until next time, Zach out.